Okay, heroic protectors of students, tighten that cape and let's overcome our first challenge: understanding the threats to our students' safety. We love student ministry, and we want it to be the safest place on the planet. So, is it safe? Fact: when it comes to sexual abuse, there are two threats: external threats and internal threats. Most ministries are fantastic at protecting against the external threats, but often we're unaware of the internal threats, which make up 90% of the problem. Unfortunately, the kind we're better at protecting against isn't the predominant threat. External threats, or the abduction offenders, only make up a small percentage of actual predators. Internal threats, the preferential offenders, often walk in and out of ministry doors undetected. That's why these threats are so hard to protect against and why they're so dangerous. We're sure you have procedures in place to protect students, but how do you know if your efforts are working? In our experience, most ministries think they're good to go with tactics like background checks, child check-in systems, security cameras, and name tags to protect their students. But what if all of this isn't enough? What if the fences you're building aren't the right ones? There are many different types of fences, and each effectively protects against a different type of threat. So let's imagine your student ministry as a garden. What type of fence do you build to protect it? To keep cows out, a barbed wire fence works perfectly. But this same fence is worthless at keeping out the rabbits. And although they seem harmless, it's the rabbits that can do the most damage to a garden. Here's the big idea: the type of fence you build should be determined by what you want to keep out. At Ministry Safe, this is what we see every day. Churches build fences that are very effective for one type of predator, the abduction offender, but the preferential offenders, like rabbits, hop right in undetected and rip up our ministries. To build the right fence, you have to recognize and understand the different threats facing your ministry. When it comes to sexual abuse, there are two main threats. The first type are external threats: the abduction offender who pulls up, grabs a kid, and drives off. Think white vans and Amber Alerts. The other type are internal threats, or the preferential offender. This type of predator doesn't fit the stereotype we look for, and is therefore much harder to spot. Most student ministries build barbed wire fences that are great for keeping out external threats, the abduction offenders, and this is important. Keep it up. But abduction offenders only make up a small fraction of predators. We need to add additional protections to keep your students safe from the larger threat, the preferential offenders. Preferential offenders appear totally normal and unthreatening. They work their way into ministries, target students, and often do so completely undetected. The preferential offender is the most significant threat to our students, and this person walks in and out of the ministry through the same door that you use. We need a solution for the preferential offender, and our barbed wire fences will not get it done. The preferential offender has no visual profile. He or she looks just like you and me. So, how do we solve this problem? Since we can't recognize preferential offenders visually, we must recognize them behaviorally. What are those behaviors? It's known as the grooming process. These are actions that the preferential offender uses to prepare a child for inappropriate sexual touch. The key is to recognize the grooming process, and we are here to help equip you with the eyes to see it. The preferential offenders are out there and are active. So, heroic protectors of students, if you're going to conquer this foe, you need to understand what makes these preferential offenders so dangerous, how they gain access to our students so easily, and how to detect these behaviors before students are in harm's way. You may be thinking, how big of a problem can the preferential offender really be? The truth is, it's an enormous problem. Studies show there are 60 million sexual abuse survivors in the US. Given a population of 300 million, that's 1 out of 5 Americans who were sexually victimized before he or she turned 18. On average, the male molester begins victimizing children at 13 or 14 years old. And yet, the average age of criminal prosecution is 35 years of age. Before these predators are prosecuted, they will have between 50 and 150 victims. You may also be thinking, that can't be a problem in my ministry because we run criminal background checks. Sure, background checks are important, but alone, they simply don't solve the problem. Less than 10% of preferential offenders will ever encounter the criminal justice system. That means that more than 90% of those who wish to hurt our students will have no criminal record for you to find, and they know it. The reality is, predators go where barriers are the lowest. And folks, the Christian church is one of the lowest barriers out there. We are the place for grace, forgiveness, and second chances. You may even think you'll be able to spot an offender in your ministry. Remember, the preferential offender has no visual profile. He or she looks just like you and me. And the truth is, 90% of sexual abuse victims report that the predator was someone they knew and trusted, someone they spent time with in a seemingly safe environment, someone from inside the fence. Statistically, 1 out of 4 girls and 1 out of 6 boys will be sexually abused before they graduate from high school. This means if you have 50 kids in your student ministry, 10 of them have been or will be sexually abused before walking at graduation. It's unlikely you would know which students because unfortunately, 66% of sexual abuse victims will never talk about the abuse until adulthood, if ever. These statistics apply to all socioeconomics, racial groups, demographics, and denominations. So without good information, you simply won't spot the problem. Now that we're aware of the problem, it's time to join the fight against it. It's time to get to work building the right fence. A fence informed by an understanding of the grooming process of the preferential offender. The grooming process is predictable. And when something is predictable, it's preventable. Here's the great news. The folks at Ministry Safe have been helping ministries build effective fences for over 25 years, and we will help you safeguard your students by keeping preferential offenders out. Learn more about Ministry Safe's 5-part safety system and start protecting your students today.